Thank you so much for joining me again on the Data for God interview series. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of being able to talk to Matt Cook. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Glad to be here.
No problem, no problem. So, let me introduce you a little bit. So, Matt is the manager of the data team for the Operation Christmas Child International Project of Samaritans Purse in Boone, North Carolina. Now, he has progressed through 3 positions at Samaritans Purse. First, 10 years ago, as a subject matter expert in implementation. Then, for 5 years, improving the processes and starting to think about tracking some more data work. Now, for the last 3 years, focusing on the data itself, tracking both activity as well as impact. Now, before Samaritan's Purse, Matt and his family served as missionaries, teaching at the West African Theological Seminary in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. Matt has a PhD in systematic theology from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. Matt and his wife have been married for 36 years. Congratulations. They have 3 grown and married children. And I know the last time we interacted, it was a maybe that you're going to be a grandfather. Has that gone through?
Now we're there.
Awesome. Congratulations. That is great to be
Thank
able
you.
to hear. Children are always
Yep.
a blessing from God. Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, I'm sure we could spend the entire interview really just talking about that and how proud of a grandfather you are. But,
I certainly could. Yes.
yeah, I could imagine so. But let's focus on the data side. We'll go to the boring stuff for the interview instead. So I've actually recently interviewed somebody who sort of took the opposite approach from what it sounds like your background was. She got her background and PhD in statistics, and now, decades later, she's going back and getting her degree in divinity. You sort of have education in divinity, but now you've moved into the data analytics side of the house. So tell me, how did you come down this new path? What sort of drew you this way?
Well, we have to go further back into my history because my first degree, my bachelor's degree, is in chemical engineering.
Oh, awesome.
And so even back then, they had classes like, numerical analysis, which we didn't see a whole lot of application for back in the day. My first job was for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially a data analyst, even though I had no clue that was going to eventually be a job description.
That's the truth.
But that's what I did.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Okay.
Now, all through this time, I've always thought in terms of numbers and tried to graph experiences or graph impact. And so when I started with Samaritan's Purse, I started doing analysis of my own performance and my own impact. And our leaders decided that was going to be helpful in a broader sense. And so we just kept expanding that direction for what my responsibilities were and how we could be measuring impact globally.
Awesome. Yeah. So for those who may not know, what does Samaritan's Purse do?
Yeah. Samaritan's Purse is pretty diverse, really. After the story of the Good Samaritan, Jesus said, "Go and do likewise." That's pretty much the purpose of Samaritan's Purse. The example of Christ of helping those in need and proclaiming the hope of the gospel. So whether that is in terms of a relief work, whether post-war or famine or flood or pandemic, or in terms of helping mission hospitals around the world, significant impact of facilitating both equipment and personnel for those mission hospitals, or for Operation Christmas Child, collaborating with local churches to share the gospel with children. That's what we're trying to do. And so the way that works, for those that aren't familiar with Operation Christmas Child, is that we collect about 10 million gifts in the form of a shoebox, packed by volunteers and at their house. They drop them off. We ship them to 80,000 local churches in 100 countries. We train those church leaders in how to do evangelism for children. They're children's workers, they're Sunday school teachers, in how to lead children through a short discipleship course, a 12-lesson discipleship course, and then invite those children back into the church so that they are integrated as part of the local church. So Samaritan's Purse is pretty diverse, but excited to be part of it.
Oh, that's awesome. I know I've participated with Operation Christmas Child many times over the years. I've actually had the pleasure of coming up to Boone on a couple of occasions to be able to do some of the packing of the boxes. I still have my T-shirts; they don't quite fit anymore, and the ornaments that we got to hang on the tree. So that is an amazing ministry. And in fact, I actually know someone who received a shoebox. One of our friends actually grew up in an orphanage over in the Ukraine. And they actually received a shoebox there since they've been adopted and came over here to America. And they still tell the tale of actually receiving a Samaritan's Purse shoebox. That is an amazing thing.
Fantastic. That's
so,
great.
How does your role at Samaritan's Purse use data to help with their mission?
We categorize all of our data collection, data analytics into activity and impact. Concerning the activity part, for example, we want to make sure that we've trained enough teachers to adequately care for the children.
Yes.
We believe that this is a helpful way of attaining that good impact. So we're going to track the activity and measure it against some agreed upon goal. And sometimes that goal is from intuition. Sometimes it's from anecdotal evidence. Increasingly, we're moving more toward a regression on impact. So we see what has the greater impact. We do a regression. Here's the kind of activity that was able to produce that impact. That's going to be our agreed upon goal. The second half of the equation really is the impact, and increasingly, we're moving toward having an understanding of what our impact really is. Now. For nothing that we're doing is financial gain one of our KPIs. We can't do anything quite as concrete as, did we get more profit this year?
Exactly.
That's just not how we work. We give away money.
Yeah.
We don't actually gain money. But we have worked hard with some outside consultants and some very insightful individuals in order to understand how can we measure spiritual impact in observable manners for these children. And there's other ways in which we're looking at impact as well. Did the church grow as a result of this activity? Were families more united, more pleased with their children, happier to be together? We see that very frequently. It's unfortunately pretty difficult to measure. But parents saying, hey, after my child went to your event, they've got a new attitude. I said, well, it's kind of the Holy Spirit thing.
Yeah.
We're excited about that.
Oh, see, that's perfect.
And then getting that back into the feedback loop has been challenging. We certainly have more to go on that, but that's what we're trying to do.
That, I think, is always the biggest challenge, right? I think as data people, our job is to sort of try and measure that impact. But how is always key, and it's not easy. Even in a bank or a marketing firm, actually measuring that impact in a meaningful way can be tough. Now, I think when it comes to that impact, though, how do you sort of sell those results? How do you sell that impact of your data analysis to the decision makers there at Samaritan's Purse?
Yeah, that is certainly an important question. I appreciate you asking it. Now, I have been blessed with leaders that already bought into the idea of data analytics and the incorporation of data for strategic decision making.
That's great.
So I'm thankful for that. But in my case, it's been the users, the practitioners, the daily decision makers that have been a little bit slower getting on board.
Yeah.
And I can understand their reasoning. I mean, for most of them, their intuition has been fantastic.
Yes.
We hire people that have almost always had experience in multicultural situations, like they're dealing in right now. A lot of missionaries actually come on our staff. And those people have great intuition in certain areas. They might have some weakness in other areas. So in their area of strength, if they're going to use the data for their great strategic decision making, maybe I'll get them from a 90% to a 92%.
Yep.
I mean, who really gets motivated about that?
Exactly.
But it's really in using one staff member's strength to supplement another staff person's weakness, that we're going to raise the whole boat for good decision making all along. That's really what we're striving to do, and we've made some progress in that. Of course, always opportunity for growth.
It's one of those things. I think the best way to sort of try and sell data science to anybody is that it's just a tool to try and help. And I think a lot of times people almost, like you said, they see it as a challenge to who they are. And it's like, no, I'm not trying to challenge you. I know you're good at what you do. I'm just trying to provide you even better tools to be able to do it. I imagine, the fancier screwdrivers and the power drills as compared to the old-fashioned way of doing things. You are still a carpenter. I'm not going to change that. That's not the goal. So that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Now, one of the biggest things I've learned in my career is that a lot of times more data usually ends up being more problems. So what challenges do you guys run into with data at Samaritan's Purse?
I'm going to start off answering that one, I think, with talking about data structures.
Yes.
We have lived in an Excel world for a long time here in our office. I don't know about around the world, but Excel is really flexible. It's easy to use. It's easy to input data, but it's fragile and it's not global. Yeah. So building those data structures that are going to be easy to use. I mean, we're never going to match Excel in ease of use and customizability. But we're not really trying to. We're trying to get something that is going to be global and interact in such a way that we're going to gain global insights. But having those data structures ready in time and at the right moment with easy interactability, that's been a continual challenge for us. It will always be a challenge for us.
Yeah.
Because we're such a clear cyclical ministry. We do this once a year. We collect once a year. We do evangelism once a year. We train once a year during a course of 3 or 4 months. But, if we miss that window, we're stuck for another year.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the issues that we deal with. We've gotten good collaboration on, but still has been a significant point of focus and remains a significant point of focus. Then, of course, dirty data.
The words I think every data analyst knows so well.
Once we had planned out a great structure, we had translated into all of our languages. We wanted to know how many teachers had been trained for the discipleship program. Well, our translator had used the word formateur for that teacher instead of enseignant. Well, we had decided some time ago in our structures that enseignant meant the teacher and formateur meant the trainer of the teachers.
Oh boy.
Now, in French, you can switch them back and forth. It was just our particular structure. And we didn't notice that the translator had swapped them until after the data started coming in, and it was just funky.
Yeah. So,
we caught it eventually. We're getting better at it. Or worse, kind of a situation where, the data are wrong, and then you put it in a visualization and publish it. You don't catch it in time, and then the actual subject matter expert sees it, says, "Hey, your data's wrong." And it doesn't matter whether it's 1 point, the entire viz is now discredited.
Yeah.
So that's just the reality. In fact, just last week, I had read this passage to my team. Let me just read it here for you from Proverbs 24. I passed by the field of a sluggard, by the vineyard of a man lacking sense, and behold, it was all overgrown with thorns. The ground was covered with nettles, and its stone wall was broken down. Great application to continually focusing on cleaning up that dirty data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
whether it's analysis or visualization, you've got to focus on it. Yeah.
It's so true, and it's so hard because you're right. I think those mistakes people don't always realize down the line they can sort of grow and multiply. And so you're exactly right. Data has a way of coming up and biting you, no matter where you are in the process. I could only imagine the struggles, like you said, with dealing with different languages. A lot of the data I've dealt with has just been in English, and so it's not as difficult in that regard. But you're right. If you have translators moving things around, all it takes is one flipped translation and things go a little awry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on the
It's
opposite side of
been
challenge,
joyful, but yeah.
well, yeah, exactly. That as long as the joy's still there. And then speaking of
Yeah.
that joy, on the opposite side of challenges, tell us one big success story you've had with data at Samaritan's Purse.
Having leaders that are already pushing data. In fact, as my kind of summarized job description when I hired into this role, they said, we want you to wring every bit of value out of the data. I mean, that's already a pretty big order, but
Yeah.
it's valuable for me that, all right, let's try to make some change. Let's make some improvements that we can wring the value out. One of those was a couple of years ago. Had a team working together in order to predict the cost, what it would actually cost for a full implementation in the field. Previously, we had just been, receiving receipts of expenses and paying those expenses, and we needed to get ahead of it and actually send the money up front because, working in 100 countries, a lot of these volunteers do not have a bank account that they can use in order to take care of the expenses.
Gotcha.
So we didn't do, any fancy regression, any Monte Carlo, simulations for randomness or anything. We just built a model where you could put in some key indicators, some critical parameters, and it would predict the likely expenses. And it worked.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we've been using a modified version of that now for a couple of years, and we're building a data structure around it this year so that we can get it more automated. But it's just really thankful for that one. I do have a second one though.
Sure.
This happened even about a half a dozen years ago. We just didn't have structures in place to record the kind of data we needed for any predictive risk mitigation. And so I was starting to understand, it was becoming clearer what data we would have to collect, and laid that out to our leaders. And it took me, literally a couple of years to sell the idea. But they bought the idea, we implemented it, and the first year of data collection was horrible. It was just horrible. There was bad data, there was misunderstanding, there was just plain wrong answers. But through time, we realized what went wrong there. We improved those through time. We've improved on that to the point that we actually have data that we can use for risk mitigation, for end of season prediction, something that is really going to be valuable. In a culture of short tenure data scientists, that kind of long-term change and cultural change in an organization just wouldn't be possible.
True.
It doesn't matter how good your leaders are, sometimes you just have to understand it and stick it out for a while to make the change. I'm thankful that I've had that privilege, but it's been good.
That's great. See, it's a great lesson, I think, for any data scientist to always remember, right? Is that you don't always need fancy to be able to have impact. And I love those success stories, right? Even if it's a basic model that works, right? It doesn't have to be the fanciest thing, but it works. And having good data and getting that structure, and like you said, having the patience to wait for it to be able to come to fruition. A lot of times we can't sort of, for lack of a better way of putting it, build the Death Star all at once, right? Like it takes small pieces, one at a time. And there are mistakes that get made, but that's okay because that's how you learn and grow from that. So that's awesome to be able to hear.
Yeah, it was good.
Perfect. So let's go ahead and finish it up. So what are some things we can pray about for you at Samaritan's Purse?
Yeah, I am going to recycle some prayer requests
No
that
worries.
I used not that long ago. Because I had someone ask me almost the exact same question. And so I had a chance to think about it. And it comes down to three words, but I'm going to give a sentence to each of the words. It's insight, wisdom, and clarity. Probably some pretty big words when it comes to data. But in my context, it's insight into what activity we really need to analyze and get the data from, so that we can have the wisdom of building the model that is going to get the most bang out of that buck, wring the most out of those data, and then the clarity and the presentation for great decision making. So for me, insight, wisdom, clarity kind of follows that data process.
Oh, well, that's perfect. I'm going through a book study in Proverbs right now, and I think those three words summarize the entire book of Proverbs, right? That notion of insight, wisdom, and just clarity on how to be able to do it. So definitely, I know I'll add you to my prayer list. I'm sure the viewers at home will do the same. Matt,
Appreciate that.
thank you so much for coming out and talking with me today. This has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, getting to know some of the things you all do at Samaritan's Purse to use data to further the kingdom. Thank you again.
Thank you. So much appreciated.
Sure thing. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
And then for everyone at home, take care and God bless.